This is Rich Ezzo from Catalyst. Welcome to the third quarter Patent Watch. Today's topic is ad heat advertising, and our presenter will be Dan Christo. For those of you new to Patent Watch, I can define it a little bit for you. What is Patent Watch? It's a quarterly webinar where we analyze and interpret patents. So we're going to take a look at patents from Google, Microsoft, Facebook, etc., other internet giants. And the purpose of it really is to be somewhat predictive. Our presenter, Dan Christo, used to utilize this on his own as an SEO, and we thought it might be a neat idea to make public. So we will be doing these on a quarterly basis where he shares some of his findings. He's done some in the past, as you can see on the left, such as social search, personalized, and freshness. Who is Dan? So Dan is Director of SEO Innovation here at Catalyst. He's been in the industry since 2002. He's one of our co-authors on an ebook that we've authored called Mastering the Art of Social SEO. He is a featured author and speaker. You can see him on Search Engine Land on a monthly basis. He also speaks at SES, has been in both New York and Chicago already this year, and next month we'll be at the San Francisco conference speaking on developing an integrated social search strategy. He also hosts some New York City SEO meetups and has led a number of large-scale SEO strategies for us. From here, Dan, you can take it away, and I may pop in from time to time just to see how everyone's doing, but it's all yours.
Great. Thanks, Rich. So when we look for patents, what we typically do is we go to google.com/patents, and we start to put in search terms like social networking or algorithm updates and look for anything interesting. We've looked at a lot of patents with Google Glass, a lot of things that Facebook is doing around advertising. Typically, we tend to move towards the organic or SEO type patents, but today, a particular patent caught my attention, which is called ad heat advertising. So what is this patent about? Well, typically, if you're a paid search marketer and you're doing AdWords on Google, you're going to look for keywords that a lot of people are searching for, and you're going to try to show your ad on that keyword. And you want to do that because these people are looking for information on a keyword, so it's very relevant for them. Now, on a social network, people aren't searching. So in order to get your ad in front of the relevant people, we need to start targeting their profiles. And Facebook does a really good job. They've collected a lot of interests and likes and who you're connected to. So you're able to target with great granularity on Facebook. What this patent is about, and what's a little different than what Facebook is doing, is Google Plus is actually looking at a person's influence. And not only can you get your ad in front of a relevant person, but you can get your ad in front of a relevant, influential person. And that influential person can not only interact with your ad, but they can also share your ad to other people in their network. So this patent really breaks down what is this whole methodology, how is this going to work, what sort of factors make someone influential, how are advertisers going to bid in this new system if it's not on keywords, how are influencers going to view the ads and share the ads, and how are they incentivized to do that. So this patent is particularly interesting because Google is taking its revenue sharing program that it pioneered on YouTube and essentially AdSense as well, where publishers will get a fraction of the revenue per click. And they're taking that model and they're bringing it to Google Plus so that when an ad is shown to someone on Google Plus, if they actively reshare, or in this patent's methodology, repropagate an ad, that person will be getting a share of all the clicks that their followers clicked on, and getting share of the revenue that Google makes on all those clicks. So this resharing helps distribute this ad through a social network like Google Plus in an organic way, in a relevant way, but also in a trusted way. And one of the things I've learned about trust is trust works in two ways. One is by authority, and you could look at a doctor or a scientist and you could say, well, they're experts in the field, so when they say something, I believe it. The other way of doing it is through intimacy. So I'm very intimate, I'm very close with my family members. So if they recommend something or they say don't do something, I'm more likely to believe it. Or a close friend, right? You've got a great, strong relationship with them. So trust is in that too. On a social network, when we're looking at trust, we use the intimacy signal. How well related, how closely related are you with someone? So if you're part of a circle on Google Plus of family members, chances are that trust is going to be very strong, that relationship is going to be very close, and they're going to be highly influential to you. So when you think of how influence is measured, one of the ways on a social network is by the connections and relationships you have. So someone who is connected to a lot of people follow them or they've added them to a circle, that is considered a highly trusted individual to Google, and that plays into this whole new paid search feature. So here's a screenshot of the patent. The actual name of the patent is called Ad Heat Advertisement Model for Social Network. It was developed by Google. There's 4 iterations. The most recent one is September 14th, which is actually my birthday. That's not why I chose this one. But this is about a 25-page patent, and every time they release a new version, there's just a few minor upgrades, a few paragraphs added. So let's dive into the actual patent. So I don't want to read the entire background of the patent, but basically the overview is saying Google is tracking all the activity that's going on in Google+. Whenever someone +1s a post or adds a status update or friends someone or joins a community or does a hangout, whatever the action is, Google is tracking that, and they're tracking the impact. So for anyone who is who uses Google Plus a lot, there's a feature on there called Streams. I think it's called Streams, where you can actually take a look at one of your posts and see it's called Ripples, sorry, it's called Ripples, and see how many people have shared that post, and then of those shares, how many of their followers have shared that post, and you can see the ripple effect spreading out across the social network and see how big your reach is. So that's essentially what Google's doing, is they're monitoring the ripple effect, and if you can share a piece of content and it creates a lot of ripples and a lot of people see that share, then you're considered an influencer. So they're monitoring all this activity. They're starting to quantify influence based on your ability to get other people to do actions, whether it's share something, reshare something, or click on something you've shared, or leave a comment on what you share. So this is all tying into an influencer method, and this also ties into the authorship program Google recently rolled out. So if you're a blogger, you can put some code on your website so that in the search results, searchers can see, wow, Dan Christo, he's the author of danchristo.com, and he wrote this article. And this authorship is tied to a previous patent watch that we looked over, and the patent we talked about agent rank, where it's essentially assigning you a score, kind of like page rank for a page, but agent rank is for a person or an author, also called author rank. So now that Google understands who you are, because you have a real profile set up on their website, and they understand what content you've authored on other websites and what expertise you have in other areas, and now they can see who you're connected to and how likely someone is to engage on content you're sharing. They've created this influencer score. Now, if I was an advertiser and I wanted to use Google Plus's new influencer marketing platform, here's what I would do. Let's walk through this flow. We're going to start by giving Google Plus some input parameters, or essentially describing the characteristics of users. So for example, I might say, I want football fans. I want women, age, whatever, to talk about football. Or another way, what I could do is I could just upload a piece of creative. It could be text, it could be video, it could be images. And Google is going to analyze that content and pull out keywords. And it actually already does this. In Google Plus, you can see when you create a piece of content, it will automatically tag that content with some hashtags. This is all in preparation for this influencer marketing platform that's going to roll out. So once Google understands what the content is about and what the tags are, the keyword tags, whether you give it to them or they analyze that on their own, they're going to crawl their database and pull out influencers who are relevant to those tags. And maybe they're saying, well, you said you're looking for moms and your content is about cooking, so let's pull out all the moms who have liked posts about cooking. and then we're going to order them based on their influence. So we'll put the most influential moms on top, the ones with the most followers, who have the most engagement, who post the most content and get the most +1s. And now you're going to see that list and you're going to say, I want to bid $2 for an influencer like this, or $5 for an influencer like this, whatever the amount you want to bid. Google's going to take that bid and going to add a few of their own factors, specifically a quality score like mechanism, where it's judging the quality of your content and the click-through rate of your past advertisements. And it's also going to look at the relevancy and say, how relevant is this content to this person? And it's also going to look at competitors' bids and say, how much is the competitor bidding for that same person? And it's going to factor in the overall scoring for your ad, and it's going to show that ad, whether it's in, at the very top of their stream of content, or it's somewhere else in their stream of content, whether it's a big ad or a small ad. That is all dependent on all those factors I just mentioned. So a user is going to see that ad in their particular post. And then let's go to the next step to see what the flow is for the user. Okay, so when we think of what influencer marketing is, before we go to the user flow, just take a moment and let's think about influencer marketing. Influencer marketing has actually been going on for a really long time. Brands have almost always reached out to, whether it's celebrities, it could be bloggers, it could be experts who want to endorse or be affiliated with their product. And they basically pay those people to talk about them, especially in the pharmaceutical base. Big Pharma will pay doctors to recommend a particular drug or push a particular drug. So influencer marketing is super effective because this form of trusted native advertising, where you're getting someone who's highly trusted to talk about your product, ends up reacting much better than traditional ads. And I looked at a survey recently, I forget who ran it, but it essentially said conversations from your friends who are trusted on your social networks have about a 95% trust rating with consumers. And blog posts from experts have about a 90% trust rating. And then when you get into more traditional like TV ads, banner ads, radio ads, they've got about a 50%, meaning 50% of consumers trust them and 50% don't trust them. So this form of native influencer marketing is extremely trustworthy. And because of that, it gets higher engagement and better performance. So when you're bidding to show your ad in front of the most influential people, this is an evolution of influencer marketing. Now I'm not just working with a blogger to talk about my product. Now I'm going to the social network and I'm getting an influential person, and I'm paying them to talk about it because they're influential. So if we move into the actual characteristics of how do we identify who's influential. So this is sort of what I mentioned before, where Google is crawling through people's profiles and pulling out specific things that they've written about, or content they've written on other websites, or content they've searched for, or content they've liked or commented on. All these things, they've got a massive profile, and then they're actually ranking that profile based on how influential you are in a specific category. And if you joined us for the agent rank conversation a while back, we realized that every single category has a different influencer score. So I might be very influential in SEO, but I might have no influence in cats or dogs or pets. So they're looking for specific categories or tags that they're extracting, and they're trying to rank what the influence is for that particular category. And we can take an example. I just went to Google Plus and I typed in raters, and it gave me a list of people, essentially, and a little snippet. And I clicked on this one, and this woman, Kat H., she's listed all her favorite things like Oprah. And one of her favorite things is the Oakland Raiders. Since I was searching for Raiders, this was a match. So this is a person, I don't know what their influence is, but this is a great example of the type of information Google is collecting on Google+. So when you think of Google+, you may want to think of it not so much as a social network, which it is, but it's more of an ID system where you can say this is your real true identity online, much like Facebook is doing. Here's a lot of information about you. Here's the people you know, and we can tie any sort of online activity you've done to this profile. Why? So Google can, of course, monetize that by showing ads to these people. Here we go. What do the users actually see? What does the ad experience look like for them? Here's the flow from the patent. Essentially, we will start. The user will log into the particular social network, and then they'll see a stream of content from people that they follow and topics that they're interested in. And within that stream of content, there will be an ad. And that ad you'll be able to comment on, reshare it. It'll just look like a native piece of content. Now, if you decide to, it says propagate your ad, it's essentially resharing your ad with the followers. And now it's going through a couple different cases. If the user engages with the ads, now let's see what eats up the budget. How long will this ad exist in this network as it gets shared from person to person to person? And the first check that's going to decide whether this ad continues is, has the budget for the ad expired? So every time there's a click, every time there's a share, there's a fraction of that budget getting sucked up. So just like our paid AdWords, there needs to be some budget management in place. And then secondly, has the time period for the ad expired? So if I was running a campaign for Mother's Day and Mother's Day passed, and I scheduled my campaign to run, from X date to Y date, then it'll automatically turn off when that campaign's done. The third check is, has this ad already showed up to the person's followers via another influencer? So obviously multiple influencers are resharing this ad, and we don't want to hit the same person with the same ad over and over again. And then this very interesting last piece, has a heat balance been reached? So we need to really understand what that means by heat balancing, and really why is this patent called the ad heat advertisement model. So before we get into the actual what heat balance is and where it comes from and how it works, let's just look at a quick example. This is Kat H, our influencer who likes the Oakland Raiders. And this was just an image I grabbed from her profile screenshot talking about Oreo fudge creams. And although this was just organically created, she took a picture because she loves them, you can imagine what an ad is going to look like. It's going to be a piece of content, whether it's a meme or a product shot, or it could be like the Oreo lights out type of thing that they want to get a viral push behind it on Google+. So this is a great way to think of how advertising is going to work in this world, where it's really about content being shared. It's not about ads that you put in front of people as much as it is quality content marketing that you're paying for viral distribution. So it's sort of a mindset shift for paid search marketers, and now you really need to be thinking about the content marketing element of your practice. So heat diffusion, what does that mean? How does it work? What is heat balancing? What is ad heat? Here's the concept. It's from thermodynamic physics, where the idea is, let's say you have 3 different particles, and the numbers here, 70, 50, 23, they represent degrees of heat. So this particle is at 70 degrees. This is a little cooler at 50. This is a little cooler at 23. Heat from this particle will transfer to cooler particles. And so this heat of 70 transfers to 50, and heat from this 50 will transfer to 23. But heat from 23 degrees, it's not going to transfer to 70, because that's not how thermodynamics works. And it's the same concept that gets applied in a social network with influence. Let's say we have an influencer here. I keep on moving my mouse, thinking that you guys can see my mouse movements. Let's check a laser pointer. So you've got an influencer here at 70 influencer score. They can repropagate or reshare an ad, and that'll get shown to someone with a slightly lower influencer score who's following them. And they could reshare the ad, same ad, and it'll get shared to someone with a lower influencer score. But let's say that it started with this lower influencer score, and they reshare the ad. It's not going to get shared with 50 or 70 because they're higher influence. So this really comes into play when you're thinking about, what is my bidding strategy on Google+? If I'm trying to save a little bit of money and bid low and get low influential people, even though they might have a great network of influencers who are more influential than them, their ad, your ad, is not going to get shown even if they reshare it. So this is all about how advertisement passes through the social network. Is there a quality score? Yes, there is a quality score, and as I mentioned before, there's a number of factors that determine how much you actually pay for an ad on Google+. And if I don't want to read this whole thing, but it's essentially saying that they're storing historical click-through rate for ads. So the higher click-through rate you have, the better quality score you have. And the better quality score you have, the cheaper it's going to be to bid for the higher influencers. So this again points back to the content marketing element of this, where instead of just creating an ad that maybe is, would be enticing on Google search, now you actually need to create content, because images have much more engagement than text. And you need to create videos, and not just low quality videos, but really high quality videos that people want to share and want to pass along. And the more they share, the more you pay, but the cheaper per click and per share that you're actually paying. And this is all, Google has manipulated this to basically get the most money out of advertisers and to force them to create better quality ads. Because if you're creating a social network, the biggest problem you run into is how to monetize that. And ads upset people because they're friction. But if we create high quality content and we have it natively shared by influencers, people you've already agreed to follow and listen to, then it's not so bad an experience. All right, so let's wrap up with a few slides just to summarize what we've talked about and raise a few questions. Essentially, we're paying for an ad to go viral. We're not necessarily paying to get the ad in front of 1,000 people like we would on Facebook. We're paying to get the ad in front of 1,000 people who can then make a ripple effect and spread that ad to 10,000 people each, who can spread that ad to 100,000 people each. And with any type of viral strategy, it always goes back to how good is the content and how coordinated is the effort and the strategy behind it. So even if you pay an influential person a lot of money to share an ad, if it doesn't match up with who they are and what they believe in, they're not going to do it. So we have to really make great quality content that they're willing to share and they're willing to endorse and get behind it. And it also needs to be very relevant and high quality, as I mentioned. The higher quality ad, the higher the engagement. We also need to be focusing on images and videos. And this will get into a recommendation on how do we go about actually shifting our mindset from AdWords to ad videos and ad images. And how do we take that content that we're creating for Google+ and use that also on Facebook and Instagram and Vine and Pinterest and other areas to get the most out of it without overusing the same creative piece. And lastly, a summary. Influencer scores are based on Google's AgentRank patent. So if you're not familiar with how Google's authorship works, or you've never heard of AgentRank or AuthorRank, then it's definitely worth your while, especially if you're in paid search, to spend a little time researching what those pieces are. It's essentially I'm creating my own identity on Google+ and tying the content I create on my blog, on different social networks, to that content, to the content on Google+. And as I engage with other people's content, let's say I comment on someone else's content, I'm passing some of my influencer score to them to make them more influential. And likewise, if they comment or share mine, they're passing some of their influencer score to me to make me influential. And the higher influencer score I have, then the more money I get paid, because again, Google's sharing the revenue with these influencers. Recommendations. So here are some things that we can walk away and start thinking about. The first one is there's going to be a new set of bidding strategies that goes into this new world of influencer marketing. Do we want to focus on the high influence people, the ones that can really get the message out to a lot of people very quickly, high trust in specific categories? If we do that, then the price per influencer is going to be higher, but the engagement is also going to be higher, meaning the quality score is higher and the bidding cost lower. So there's a balance there. Maybe we want to approach a mid-influencer and get more influencers for the same amount of money. We're just going to have a little bit of lower engagement. So the long-term effects is it's going to be a little bit more expensive than if we spent the money up front for the high influencers. But again, that depends on your targeting. If you have very specific targets, very well-defined targets, you may want to go for the high-influence individuals because they're going to hit the people you really need. If you have broader targets or maybe want a branding initiative, then you maybe want to go for the mid or low-tier influence because those are the ones who can hit a large group of people at a cheaper price, but just keeping in mind the click-through rate and the ad quality score. So how does one actually start thinking about influencer research and understanding what they need to do to understand how influencers work? And here's my suggestion here is to start looking at your own customers and your own visitors to your website and to analyze them to say, what are my highest quality customers or highest quality target consumers? What are the ones with the highest lifetime value to me? And you could start to pull profiles, start to build your own profile of your customers or your brand's customers. And you might be asking, well, how do I get the information? Maybe my customer is Zappos and they buy shoes and I have some information about them, but I don't really know what they like and the content they consume. What I recommend is to try to encourage brands to get their customers to sign into their website with Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or any sort of social network, because when they do, they're basically just skipping a registration process, but in the process you can actually suck in a lot of content from Facebook, what they like, what their interests are, how old they are, their gender, all that stuff that you don't have to ask for them up front. So they don't need to fill out a new profile on your website. They can just suck in their existing Facebook or LinkedIn profile. So that's a great way to start collecting information about your customers or your consumers who visit your website. And then you can start to segment that into the high quality, high tier, high value customers or visitors and the lower tier one. And once you have a profile built, so you understand really my best customers are mommies aged 35 to 45 who like watching soap operas and who like cooking. Then you can look for those influential people on the social networks like Facebook and Google+, and you can start to target ads to them that then they can share to their audience, hopefully getting similar people back to your website. And then the content piece is really important because typically within our agencies we don't put a strong emphasis on content creation. There's not a lot of digital arms in our groups that can just create content that easily goes viral. But in the future, and the future being now, content is becoming more important, both for organic as well as paid. And specifically in this world, where so much of the performance of a piece of content or an ad is based on how viral we can get it to go, having a creative agency or partnering with a creative agency that can easily, quickly produce content that we can use for our ads is going to be a real differentiator for our clients. Now lastly, 3 things to think about. When do we think this patent is going to go live? When do we need to start preparing for it? I would say in order for Google to roll this out, they first need to get the influencer score piecing in place. For them to do that, they need to get a lot of people on Google+ using Google+, which I think we all can agree that they've done that, and they're going to continue to make it a more active place. The second thing is they need to understand what content people have authored and what their real identity is. And this is all tied back to authorship and agent rank. And they're rolling that out. We can see that exist today. The third thing is they need to be able to analyze content and understand what that content is about and who it's relevant to. And they've already rolled that out. So I would say this new platform, within the next 12 to 24 months, we're going to see this announced. It'll probably be a big unveiling because this is going to be a huge evolution of AdWords for them, especially since they're tying their search into their social network so closely. And lastly, when do we need to start developing new bidding algorithms? I think this is going to really be a Group M question when we understand more about when Google is going to roll this out. Then we're going to start thinking, what tools do we need to update? How do we start bidding programmatically? And what sort of rules do we have in place to not focus much on the keyword, but to focus on the influencer? So there's going to be a lot of new technology, a lot of new strategies that are going to be rolling out. And this patent is just to give us a high-level preview so we know what to expect. So when this comes down the line, we can talk intelligently and confidently to our clients that we've already predicted the future, and here it is. Okay, that wraps up the presentation. I guess this would be a great time if anyone's asked questions or has a question, they could just type it in, and Rich, you could read those off, or Freddie, whoever has some questions.
Okay, will do. Thanks, Dan. That was great. Yeah, definitely a couple of questions. The first is, what do you envision Bing following suit, and to what? How much of a disadvantage would they be at already?
Great question. I actually don't think Bing is going to follow suit as much as Facebook is going to follow suit. And Bing is partnered with Facebook. So I'm sure that's going to tie in, but it's really going to be Facebook and Google battling each other on this influencer marketing, because Facebook actually has a much richer graph of influencers where they've been tracking likes for a long time, and they have a lot more profile data than Google does. They don't have the authorship piece in place. So if I write a post on my blog, I cannot connect it to my Facebook account, which is going to give them a problem in identifying what area someone's truly influential and truly an expert in. But I do think that's the next shift, is Facebook's going to say, we have the targeting piece. Now Google is rolling out the influencer piece. We're going to follow suit. And in a way, they're already building that with their EdgeRank algorithm, where they can already decide, based on how likely you are to engage with this piece of content. We're either going to show it to you, or we're not going to show it to you, or maybe we'll show it to you lower in your feed. So they've got a lot of places, we've got a lot of things in place inside their own system to identify engagement and how often people are, how likely people are to engage with content. So they've got pieces of it, but I think Google is going to be the first one to announce it, push it through, and then Facebook's going to follow suit.
Okay, cool. Another question, actually very similar, but kind of piggybacks that, is how would you pull a user's personal profile info from Facebook to your CRM?
Yes, good question. So when I think about it, how I've done it in the past is I've created a feature on my website that requires the user to register or log into. And usually there's some clear social benefit of logging into with Facebook or Twitter. So I say, you know what, by logging into the website with Facebook or Twitter, you can see what your friends have liked, or you could get your friends' recommendations on something on our site. Or if you just want to give them an easy way to log in and not have to create a new password or register again, you could ask that. And when they do log in, you can ask Facebook for permission to access certain points of the profile. And the user has to grant the permission to completely log in or complete registration. And by doing that, Facebook's going to give you a ton of information about who they are, who they're connected to, where they're from, what they like, all this sort of information. And then, on top of that, we can start doing searches on the graph search to try to supplement some of the information we have about a particular individual. At any rate, we're going to save that information in a database somewhere. So we have a profile of the person, we have their avatar we grabbed from Facebook, and then we can create an integration with whatever CRM system we want, or a third-party analytics system. We can even use third parties who have data about these people and overlay it with our original data and create a more enhanced profile. And then we can start to group similar people together and segment them, and to figure out, do these people buy more than other people, or what's the most valuable consumer group?
Okay, very cool. Another one here, good question. How can we estimate budgets? And when a budget runs out, does my ad and shares disappear? Because these are going to be reshared and having the ripple effect. So,
yes. What we know from the patent is that at some point your budget will be depleted, and at that point the ad no longer appears for anyone in the network. So essentially you're going to set a daily budget, very similar to AdWords, and as the day goes on, the more it's shared, the more it's clicked on, that budget gets eaten up, eaten up, eaten up until it goes dark. So I think we're going to have to use very much the same strategies that we have on AdWords, where there's day parting in place. There's all these strategies we've developed over time to make the best use of our budget, and we're going to implement these in the same way, but there may be special nuances because it's Google Plus and because it's people and not keywords.
Right, I think the difficulty there is estimating the budget ahead of time.
One thing I would say is It really depends on the strategy of influencers you're going. So if you're targeting high influence people, you're going to know you're going to be bidding a couple dollars per person. Whereas at low influence people, you're going to be bidding a couple cents per person, at least at the beginning. So you will have an idea of, because I'm planning on targeting this many people and this level of influence, how quickly your budget is going to get eaten up because of that strategy. But I think it is going to take time and a little bit of trial and error to really get a sense for what does this mean, a level 10 influencer versus a level 2 influencer.
I don't know if you mentioned this, but do you anticipate the influencers ever participating in the revenue of this?
Yeah, meaning the revenue share element?
Yeah.
Yes. So the way I believe it's going to work is influencer is going to see an ad in their network, and they're going to have the option to share that ad with specific circles. And it could be their friends or family or public. And based on how many people they're sharing with, that ad's going to get reshared. And anyone who clicks on that ad based on the original share, that original share will get a fraction of the click-through rate. So let's say, for example, go ahead. Let's say I share it with 100 people, and each of those gets 100 clicks. And those clicks, each click is worth $1, right? So I've got $100 Google's getting paid. They may give me a fraction of that, maybe 10 cents for each click.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
Let's see. I think there's another one coming in. There's one here. I think you might have somewhat answered, but it's how does one perform influencer research on your own?
Yes, great question. There are platforms out there already that are starting to do influencer research and influencer marketing. And you could use tools to do searches on Twitter or through these platforms who have influencers. And you can get a feel for what sort of reach particular influencers have and how big is a particular segment. So for example, I know mommy bloggers are a very big, very influential segment. That's going to be something that CPG brands probably have already worked with, or at least started to investigate. So this is really going to move down to, we're going to need to better understand how to profile people, how to connect brands with influencers, both on Google Plus and outside Google Plus, how Clout and Cred and Peer Index and these companies who are creating influencer scores, how they are building tools that we can search their database to find the most influential people on a specific topic. So there's a lot of new technology happening in the influencer space. Certainly LinkedIn is making a big influencer push, getting influencers to be followed and to create content. Google Plus is rolling out Agent Rank, and we could already see a highly influential person affecting algorithm updates and the order search results. So I think there's going to be more tools available and a lot more conversation happening in the space, and we're just going to have to listen to it and jump in when we can.
Okay. One other thing, I'm curious, do you have an instinct on perhaps where these budgets will come from? Is this going to be display, search?
I think it's going to be wherever the paid social is playing right now. So whoever controls the Facebook advertising is probably also going to be in charge of the Google Plus advertising. And in some teams, that's the paid search team. And in other teams, that's the social team. And I think there's still a little bit of question on what team should it really live in and who can perform it the best, because it's a combination of both. But as we're learning who's best equipped to run ads on Facebook, I'm guessing that team is also going to be responsible for running ads on Google+, and probably a bit of budget is going to be sucked in from the paid search team, a bit of budget from the social team, perhaps even a bit of budget from the display team or PR. Everyone is going to have to cut their budget a tad bit in order to test out this new platform.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you seen any similar patents from any of the other players?
I haven't. Facebook has some a lot of patents on the advertising piece, but I haven't specifically come across one that talks about influence or authority. It is worked into their EdgeRank algorithm, but they don't specifically talk about it in terms of influence, at least not that I've come across. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're out there, or they're being written, or they're being worked on, or they're being pending review. But this one from Google is the first one that's really been forward about it, and they've developed Google Plus and authorship, all the pieces they need to roll it out. So this I'm pretty certain that it's just a matter of time until it rolls out, and I'm sure Facebook and whoever else will follow. And I actually think LinkedIn is probably going to follow the heels pretty closely too. As I mentioned, they are doing a lot with influence, and they are trying to get more advertisers to pay for ads. And that's very much going to come from the display side, because display is very big on LinkedIn. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to merge more of a display-focused advertising route, but very similar to what Google Plus is doing.
Okay. Kind of a follow-up question here. If an influencer shares a piece of paid video content and then the budget gets depleted, will that content completely disappear, meaning no longer accessible via my G Plus stream?
Great question. I don't think the patent really went into whether or not the content's going to disappear. What it did say is that once the budget runs out, the advertisement is going to stop. And does that mean it stopped being able to be shared, or does it completely disappear? I don't know. If I had to take a guess, I would say it would turn off, because if it was left on, then people would be getting free clicks. Advertisers would be getting free clicks. So if I were Google, I would just remove that, have a little sponsored note by it, and then when it's off, it's off.
Excellent. All right, Dan, I think that does it for the questions. We're at about 50 minutes anyhow, so really appreciate it. Thought that was really interesting.
Thanks.
For everyone on the presentation here, Dan has also written a blog post related to this topic. We have a link for it.
And the blog post, Rich, is more or less going over what we talked about here, and I think it's a great resource if anyone listening says, wow, I wish my team member could have joined, they could understand it. So you could just share the link with them. They could read through it. They'll see an embedded view of the presentation, and this should also start some chatter among the team.
Terrific. Okay, we just popped that up, so if you want to, you can link to that and find the post as well as the slide share. We'll be doing this again. I think the next one's going to be in November, so we'll send out another invite to everyone. Thank you all for joining, and we'll talk to you in the fall.